You were never supposed to know this. In the 1950s and 60s, while America fought the Cold War abroad, a different war was being waged on its own soil, in classrooms, hospitals, and prisons. Its name? MK Ultra. A now declassified CIA program, MK Ultra was a mind control experiment so dark, so outrageous, that many historians still find it hard to believe it actually happened. But it did. And some of its most shocking tests weren't conducted on spies or soldiers, but on students. Without consent, students from major universities like Stanford, Harvard, and Columbia were exposed to experimental drugs like LSD. Their behaviors were observed, their minds were broken and rebuilt, all in the name of research. Some participants, like Ted Kaczynski, later known as the Unabomber, were manipulated under these programs. Others vanished into obscurity, left with irreversible psychological trauma. The public only learned about MK Ultra in 1975, when the US Congress held a hearing after the New York Times exposed the truth. But by then, most of the documents had been destroyed, on purpose. And the darkest irony? Some believe versions of MK Ultra never truly ended. They were renamed, relocated, and rebranded. It's the kind of history they don't teach, because once you know, you never see the world the same again. By nightfall, on May 31st, 1921, Greenwood was no longer just a target. It had become a battlefield. Hundreds of white rioters, some armed by city officials, began moving house to house. Survivors recalled terrifying scenes. Doors kicked in, families dragged out, people executed in the streets, and then something almost unthinkable happened. Airplanes appeared. Witnesses described biplanes circling above the neighborhood, dropping firebombs made from turpentine and dynamite. These weren't military aircraft. They were private planes, used in crop dusting and transport, now repurposed for destruction. For over 12 hours, Greenwood burned. Homes, churches, schools, and businesses reduced to ash. A local hospital treating black patients was set on fire with people still inside. By morning, more than 1,200 homes were gone. Entire families had vanished, some burned, some shot, others never accounted for. And yet, even as smoke rose over Tulsa, the worst was still to come. Survivors weren't just left homeless. They were rounded up and imprisoned. Morning came. The fires had stopped, but the nightmare wasn't over. Black families who had survived the Tulsa Massacre were not offered help. They were arrested. Survivors, mostly women, elderly, and children, were marched at gunpoint to makeshift internment camps. Local fairgrounds, a baseball stadium, even a convention hall. There, they were held for days, some for weeks. They could only leave if a white person came to vouch for them. Imagine escaping a burning city only to be treated as a criminal for surviving. No charges were filed against the white mobs. No reparations were paid to the victims. And almost immediately, the erasure began. Police reports were lost. Death certificates were left blank. Newspapers that had originally covered the event suddenly changed their tone, calling the massacre a Negro uprising. Photographs of the destruction were collected and locked away. The city's leadership, local press, and even Oklahoma history books moved in unspoken agreement. This didn't happen. Don't speak of it. Don't teach it. And for nearly 75 years, that silence held. Generations of students graduated from schools in Tulsa, many just blocks from where the massacre happened, without ever hearing a word about Black Wall Street. It wasn't a hidden chapter. It was a chapter ripped out on purpose. For decades, the Black Wall Street Massacre remained a whispered secret. Families told their children quietly behind closed doors. Survivors grew old, their memories ignored by the world around them. But silence doesn't erase truth. In the late 1990s, something shifted. Newspapers from 1921 were uncovered. A few remaining survivors, now in their 80s and 90s, began to speak out publicly. Historians, journalists, and activists dug deeper. The more they searched, the clearer the cover-up became. In 1996, the state of Oklahoma formed a commission to investigate the massacre. It confirmed what survivors had always said. Greenwood was attacked, it was burned, hundreds died, and it was erased. In 2021, exactly 100 years later, something happened that once seemed impossible. 3 living survivors, all over the age of 100, testified before Congress. One of them, Viola Fletcher, stood at 107 years old and said, "I will never forget the violence of the white mob. I still smell smoke. I still see black bodies in the street. I still live through it every day." And then came the final, haunting proof. In 2022, researchers began locating mass graves in Tulsa. Some still haven't been fully excavated. Some say hundreds, possibly over 1,000, were buried quietly beneath parks, under roads, behind churches. Today, the fight continues. Survivors and their families are still seeking justice, not just recognition, but restitution. But even now, some still deny it happened. Some still want the story buried, which is why it must be told, over and over, loudly. Because when history is erased, it doesn't disappear. It waits for someone like you to uncover it.